not a rocket. I'm not going to blast off. Welcome to A Late Show. I'm your host, Stephen Colbert. You know, it's been a rough few years these last 2 weeks, but today we actually got some good news because this morning the Supreme Court ruled against Trump's attempt to end DACA, a win for undocumented dreamers brought to the U.S. as children. Well, of course, Trump doesn't care about immigrants brought to the U.S. as children. He barely cares about immigrants brought to the U.S. as wives. Now, this ruling is a huge relief to the 800,000 immigrants enrolled in DACA. 800,000. That's more than the entire population of Vermont, which is why Ben & Jerry's has introduced their new flavor, Cookies and Dreamers Immigrant DACA Chip, brought here by no choice of their cone. That wasn't easy to say.
I like it, though.
It was a 5-4 decision. Liberal pinko chief of the Patchouli Circle, Justice John Roberts, wrote the majority opinion, and he returned the president's homework with a note that said, show your work. We do not decide whether DACA or its rescission are sound policies. The wisdom of those decisions is none of our concern. We address only whether the agency complied with the procedural requirement that it provide a reasoned explanation for its action. What, now I've got to have a reason for the things I do, other than hungry or horny or both, which I call horngry. Trump was not pleased with this decision, or the one on Monday that said employers cannot fire people just because they're LGBTQ. He tweeted, "These horrible and politically charged decisions coming out of the Supreme Court are shotgun blasts into the face of people that are proud to call themselves Republicans or conservatives. We need more justices or we will lose our Second Amendment and everything else. Vote Trump 2020. So essentially, your argument is that this is as bad as getting shot in the face, and aren't guns great? We should keep a lot of them. He went on to tweet, "Do you get the impression that the Supreme Court doesn't like me?" Yes, I do. They wear black robes, and some of your fans have been known to wear the white ones.
Ku Klux Slam! Where does he find the courage?
One person who really doesn't like Trump is former National Security Advisor and evil Lorax John Bolton. Bolton has written a scathing tell-all about his time in the Trump administration called The Room Where It Happened, which Trump is desperate to suppress. So naturally, the book is currently #1 on Amazon. By the way, #2 is The Tell-All by Trump's niece, and #3 is How to Be an Anti-Racist. So they're really all about Trump. Of course, Bolton's book is only available as a pre-order. Due to Trump's swift legal action, it is impossible to get your hands on one of these. Yesterday, excerpts of the book were leaked. Bolton writes that Trump coddled dictators, thought Finland was part of Russia, and gave the thumbs up to Chinese concentration camps. Trump immediately went on the Fox News and went after Bolton.
He was a washed-up guy. I gave him a chance. He couldn't get Senate confirmed, so I gave him a non-Senate confirmed position where I could just put him there, see how he worked.
Because when it comes to national security, I just give the job to any old washed-up loser who comes along. You know, throw him a bone. How important could it be?
The book claims that during Trump's 2018 meeting with Kim Jong-un, Pompeo slipped Bolton a note disparaging the president, saying, "He is so full of." I trust Pompeo's intel on that. His lips have spent a great deal of time in the vicinity of Trump's ass. Of course, Trump wasn't buying it. He told the Wall Street Journal,
"I would doubt that. Does he have the note? Let me see the note."
"Well, Mr. President, because you asked, it's so crazy that I have one of these. John Roberts sent it to me." Now, another explosive detail is that Trump asked Chinese President Xi Jinping to interfere in our upcoming election. Trump was asked if that was true, and here's what he said.
Well, first of all, nobody has been tougher on Russia or China than I have. Nobody even close. China's paying us billions of dollars a year. They never gave us 10 cents. So nobody has been tough on China, and nobody has been tough on Russia like I have. And that's in the record books.
So, true? Answer the damn question. Did you murder your roommate with an axe? First of all, no one enjoys woodworking more than I do. I built a table and a hutch, and that's in the record books. By the way, don't look inside the hutch. Of course, while Trump had his mouth open anyway, a lot of other stupid stuff dribbled out. The Journal asked Trump about originally scheduling his Tulsa rally for Juneteenth, the holiday commemorating the day that the last enslaved people learned about the end of slavery in the United States. And far from being ashamed or chagrined, Trump was proud of it.
I made Juneteenth very famous. It's actually an important event, an important time, but nobody had ever heard of it. In fact, I announced the rally that upset everyone on the 10th. So I'm starting a new holiday just for white people called June 10th, celebrating the day they all learned about Juneteenth. You're welcome.
Then, to drive home the awkwardness, Trump tried to prove that he had popularized Juneteenth by asking an aide if she'd ever heard of it. She pointed out that the White House had issued a statement last year commemorating the day. He replied,
"Oh, really? We put out a statement? The Trump White House put out a statement? Okay. Good. Really? We put out a statement celebrating the end of slavery? Because that does not sound like me. You know how my ties are made, right?"
When it came to coronavirus, Trump didn't think it was that big a deal and added that some Americans wore facial coverings not as a preventative measure, but as a way to signal disapproval of him.
And it's not just the masks either. What about all those protesters wearing ventilators to show that they're anti-Trump? And don't get me started on those socialists in their government-issued Antifa body bags.
Despite how much pressure Trump's putting on him, Bolton evidently is not backing down. He sat down with an interview with Martha Raddatz that will air on Sunday, and he didn't pull any punches.
How would you describe Trump's relationship with Vladimir Putin?
I think Putin thinks he can play him like a fiddle.
Okay, that's not fair. Trump's really more of a cello. Big, hollow, and hard to get down a ramp. Now, while the nationwide peaceful protests for racial justice have drifted out of the nightly news coverage, they are still going strong in major cities all across the country because there is still plenty of reasons to protest, like the tragic case of the 27-year-old Rayshard Brooks, who was fatally shot twice in the back by an Atlanta policeman last week. It's a sadly familiar story. But this one might have a different ending, because the officer in question, Garrett Rolfe, now faces 11 criminal charges, including felony murder. They're getting rid of the bad apple, which you'd think all the good apples would be excited about to maintain, barrel freshness. But hours later, some of the Atlanta police called in sick to protest the murder charge. Well, this is a disappointing response to an officer being subject to the same laws that they're supposed to enforce. But the police union clarified it wasn't an official strike, saying this is not an organized thing. It's not a blue flu. What it actually is officers protesting that they've had enough and they don't want to deal with it any longer. Yes, these officers are simply fed up with scrutiny over the shooting of unarmed black men. You can learn more about it in the upcoming film, 3 Weeks Held Accountable. Yesterday, there was a step forward for racial justice on the breakfast table because finally, Quaker announced that they are retiring the Aunt Jemima brand and logo. Yes, we've achieved sweeping flapjack reform, and it's about time. This kind of racist iconography cannot be tolerated for more than 130 years. 1890. It was originally marketed as a cure for cholera and was mostly cocaine. Now, all of the racist icons in our pantry are falling one by one because Uncle Ben's Rice announced they will also scrap their brand image. Hopefully this means they'll also change their slogan from perfect every time to perfect every time, except not in 2020 and in retrospect, pretty much never. It won't be the first time the brand has addressed their problematic logo because in 2007, Uncle Ben was promoted from a servant to chairman of the board. Truly a proud day for imaginary black people everywhere. But the long overdue breakfast reckoning is not over yet. The packaging on boxes of cream of wheat may soon change. Great. While they're at it, just get rid of the whole product. The only people buying cream of wheat are those whose favorite flavor is wet. Another logo investigation is Mrs. Butterworth, whose company is now doing a complete brand and packaging review, though the race of Mrs. Butterworth has not been confirmed. The manufacturer says that Mrs. Butterworth is supposed to be anyone's grandma, as long as your grandma says, "Hello, children, I want you to grab my body, squeeze it hard, and watch sweet, viscous fluid gush out of my skull. Hey, how about a three-way with the honey bear? Mr. Butterworth's on a working trip. Let's get sticky." She's a sexual being. There's no reason why she can't have her own desires. Coronavirus cases are spiking all throughout the Sun Belt, and we just learned about a terrifying new threat of transmission because flushing the toilet may fling coronavirus aerosols all over. Oh my God, our toilets have turned on us. Though I can't say I'm surprised after all we've done to them. It was only a matter of time before they rose up to exact their revenge. The research was published Tuesday in the journal Physics of Fluids. Of course, that's only the first half of the article. Part 2 is being published in the Physics of Solids. The scientists here warn there's one more behavior to be hyper aware of in order to prevent coronavirus transmission. What you do after you use the toilet. Wait, you're saying I shouldn't high-five the dog who's been watching me the whole time? He's my best friend. I'm not going to leave him hanging. Oh, I'm being told it's not the high-fiving. Apparently, turbulence from a toilet bowl can create a large plume that is potentially infectious to a bathroom's next visitor. Plume? Wow. That means every time you flushed a public toilet, there's been a plume. You know you're in a bad place when you're nostalgic for the days when all you were inhaling in the bathroom was the previous guy's farticles. I know. Experts say there's a safety precaution you can take. Close the lid first, then trigger the flushing process. Then you can use the lid to make the toilet talk about your great public health awareness. "Great job, Steve. You're really doing your duty. But, why is the dog always in here?" Thanks, Party Mouth. We've got a great show for you tonight. I'll be talking to the president of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, Cheryl and Eiffel. But first, when we come back, I'll look at some new Father's Day cards with a very special guest.